Ninja Turtles game that I've got coming up. And I am super excited. I am hoping that this is going to pick up here real soon. All right, good. It's showing up on YouTube. I'm happy about that. Hopefully I've got some people in the chat. I really hope that if anybody's watching that you guys will interact with me, give me some encouragement, some ideas here, because the whole goal for tonight is to create a Fate Accelerated character, particularly Michelangelo, the Ninja Turtle. Before I get into the actual character creation, though, I want to go over a couple of things. A couple of preliminaries out of the way. This game, I put it in the description, but this game will be run by Alan Holloway. He runs the YouTube channel Check for Traps. Awesome game master, awesome channel. He's got some phenomenal content on there. Make sure you check that out. That's going to be this Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern start time. I think he just ran a Avatar: The Last Airbender Fate game a couple days ago, which was phenomenal. So certainly check that out. Props to you, Alan. Thanks for letting me play in the game. Also, this will be funny because this is only the second time that I've ever played Fate. I've played it, I've run it 4 times, but Jeff Doty was nice enough to run a game a couple weeks ago, I think at this point, and in Fate Accelerated, and which we created the character sort of right there in game and then just played. And it was really fascinating because we barely touched the mechanics of Fate at all. And it was a great time. And so the point of this is that Fate, and Fate Accelerated in particular, is a game that I really think anybody should try, and you shouldn't be intimidated to try it. But it can seem intimidating. And so I'm hoping that this character creation video will help a little bit with that. So let's jump in. So I've got the character sheet up here, and I just Googled and found a form fillable character sheet. You certainly don't need these, but this is helpful for reference purposes to have this. So what I have here is essentially, you can see that when it comes to Fate, the main core, the basic part of your character are called aspects. And aspects are like a sentence or a phrase or something along those lines that sort of define and kind of show who your character is, right? And this is very different from systems like D&D, for example, where you're basically you're a fighter or a barbarian or a rogue or whatever, and you pick from, basically a list of different abilities. In Fate, you're creating all of that. And your main aspect, the one that you need above anything else, is the high concept. And really the high concept is exactly as it sounds, right? It is the main sort of defining point of your character. Now, Fate Accelerated would have, or the Fate core book would have suggestions on what to do. If you were playing, for example, in a fantasy setting and you wanted to play a wizard, it's recommended that in your high concept you say, I am the high wizard of such and such or whatever, right? You name that you're a wizard, because aspects are always true, and aspects basically give you the narrative justification to do something. So the reason I bring this up is because normally in a high concept, I would suggest putting in Ninja Turtle, right? But in this case, I'm not going to, because the game has already defined that the players are the Ninja Turtles. So I don't need to state that in my high concept. Instead, I need to kind of define who Michelangelo is. What is his base characteristic? So again, if anyone's watching and you guys want to throw out some suggestions in the chat, please do. The one that I came up with that I think makes the most sense for him is like, he's the wild one, right? He's the one that is impulsive and goofy, and he doesn't, he doesn't wait on a plan, right? Where Leonardo is the leader, right? And he's the one who's going to have a plan, and he's going to want to, go in there knowing what to expect, whatever. Raphael is just like, let's do this, dudes, And so, to me, I think the high concept makes sense as the wild one. And let me type that in here, the wild one. Now, aspects are important, and you see this is pretty, it's hard to see right now because it's form fillable. What I would end up doing is printing this as a PDF, and then it should save a little bit better. But either way, if you can't, you can always, actually, you know what? Here we go. I know why. It was because I think I was going over the part where it said, all right, who knows? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Aspects are important because the way the game of Fate works is that you use your aspects to help you do something in the game, right? So if I'm the wild one, what that might mean is that I might decide that I am going to rush into combat and attack unexpectedly if, Shredder or the Foot Clan or whoever show up. So if that's the case, I might say, well, because I'm a wild one, they may not be expecting this. So I'm going to spend a fate point, which is like the currency, the in-game currency that you have, to essentially gain a +2 on my roll. And with fate, you roll 4 fate dice that have minuses, pluses, and blanks on them, and you're trying to get pluses, right? And it all sort of adds up. I'm not going to go into a lot of the mechanics because it's a little bit beyond the scope of this video, but there are a lot of great videos out there on the mechanics, so check those out. But an aspect should also be one that the GM can use to kind of add a complication to your life, right? So just as I could use the wild one as an aspect to say, okay, because I'm wild, I can gain this advantage, the GM could also turn around at some point and say, hey, because you're the wild one, you're not likely to kind of sit around and just wait for this plan to unfold where the rest of your brothers really want to try to sneak in and be careful. So I'm going to offer you a fate point to compel you to just run in, jump on your skateboard and go, right? And I can choose to do that. So the best aspects are ones that can be sort of a double-edged sword, with the exception of the next one. And we'll get into that in just a minute. But I wanted to read the sort of description that that Alan gave. He gave some suggestions for what we might use for our aspects. So the first one, high concept, describe what kind of Ninja Turtle you are. The leader, the rebel, the smartest, the funniest, etc. Right? So the wild one, that kind of describes that. The next one is your trouble aspect. And again, anybody who might have any suggestions, throw it in the chat. I would love to see that. Hopefully the chat's working. It should be. If anyone's watching and can drop a line in the chat, even just to say hi, that'd be nice. But a trouble aspect is something that is meant specifically to add a complication to your character's life. So it would be cool if it was double-edged sword in a way, but that's not one that you as the character are going to invoke generally. That's one that the GM has to add that extra drama and complication into your story. So what I had for Mikey's trouble was, essentially like severe ADD or severe ADHD, He just can't, he has a hard time paying attention. He has a hard time sitting still, right? SEVEREADD, right? So that's something, again, that the game master in game could figure out. Okay, here's a situation that I think it would be really cool. It would add a lot of tension or a lot of drama. if I were to compel this aspect right now. And so that term compel, that's just the terminology that's used for the GM to be able to use one of your aspects. So Alan had put, essentially, it should be personal, right? Anger issues, goofball, wanting to fix everything, afraid I won't be a good leader, etc. Okay. I'll get into the next one in just a second. Typically, Fate Accelerated, if you have just those two aspects to start, that's a good start, right? You can play the game with just that. Normally, a game of Fate Accelerated will allow you a high concept, a trouble aspect, and 1 to 3 other aspects. In this case, I believe we're doing 3 additional aspects. And that can just be extra stuff to help define your character, to show the GM, or to allow the GM to think about ways that he can use that or she can use that to add more complications, etc. But you don't want it to be something that the GM can't figure out, right? I had this happen to me once where I was running a game and my boy Marquise, man, he came up with like an awesome character. If you can take a look at it, it's on my channel. Shoot, I can't even remember what I called it. Fate of the Sands, I think. But he had a really cool character, but a couple of his aspects, I'm like, I have no idea how I can compel these. So that was tough, but that was a super fun game. I had James Carney in that one as well, of our very own Absolute Tabletop. So, guys, if you can, check that out. That one actually is the most watched, I think, on my channel. And I didn't think it was my best Fate game, but it was fun. Brian Holland, welcome. Thanks for watching. Trouble equals drop everything for April. Yeah, I was thinking seriously about that one because, I mean, Ninja Turtles, right? It's like April O'Neil is like the femme fatale. I wonder if that, and especially with Mikey, right? Because he's got a big crush on her and all that. So let me add that one down. I'm gonna think. I have a Google Doc open on the other screen, so I'm gonna think about that one because honestly, man, I was thinking about that when I first started thinking of this concept, like bringing in that whole sort of teenage angst over April O'Neil. Yeah, drop everything for April. Okay. The only thing I was thinking is that it's situational enough that if April, for some reason, didn't come into the picture, it may not be useful. You know what I mean? Now, I'm sure that Alan is going to bring April O'Neil in because you have to in a Ninja Turtles game. But that's an example of where you might want to be careful with the aspects that you're creating, because if it's situational, it either forces the GM to make that situation happen, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Or it may not come up, and it can get frustrating for you as the player if none of your aspects are getting compelled. So Michael Walsh, welcome. He does tend to care too much, but also be carefree at the same time. Yeah, that's the thing. And I'm actually going to address that one a little bit later, and I would love your thoughts as to whether you think it makes sense. So I'll come back to that one, but absolutely. And I'm glad you guys are bringing these suggestions up, because I did a live stream in Absolute Tabletop official group earlier, where I kind of was saying, how do you play these type of characters? How do you portray them? Because I mean, it's been a long time since I've really engaged in interacted with the Ninja Turtles. So kind of wrapping my head around this character has been a little bit difficult. But, Alan and a couple other people made really good points. They're like, just bring the essence of that character, right? You don't have to be the guy from the show. So that's cool, and that's what I'm going to try to do. So then Alan suggested for our third aspect, what is your fighting style, right? So, and he says, I think one aspect should be tailored to your unique signature weapons or style. This is important, and I'm really, really glad that he put this suggestion in here. Because with Fate, a lot of the time, especially with people who are used to playing, coming from Dungeons and Dragons or more like structured systems, you know, Edge of the Empire, something like that, where, you know, you have gear, right? And you have feats and you have skills and you have, you know, everything is very clear and defined and delineated. That can be really hard when you're playing Fate for the first time and you're like, wait, like, where's my equipment section? Because there is no equipment on here, right? There is no equipment section. So because Fate is a narrative game, it's sort of taken for granted that you have what you need. But sometimes you want to show that you have a specific piece of equipment, or you have something that is special, that goes beyond, you know, a normal gun, a normal sword, or whatever. So what I'm thinking is, for his sort of fighting style, I'm going to do Hot Nunchuck Fury. And again, yeah, Michael's got show off. Nunchucks, skateboarding, pizza tossing. I'd call him a show off. Yeah, he's definitely a show off. And when we get into approaches, Flashy's going to be my +3, and I'll go into that in just a bit. But yeah, he's for sure a show off. And so, and I kind of, and so this is the one aspect where I think this is probably not a great aspect, because it's vague enough that potentially Alan could be like, I don't know what the heck to do with that. But essentially, my thought behind it is that he's really good with the nunchucks, right? And he's got this hot nunchuck fury. Like, it's this whole silly, you know, it fits his personality. So I might go with that for now. But again, if you guys have sort of another suggestion for what to do for that sort of fighting style, or you know, sort of unique aspect around combat. I think he says, yeah, Raph is brutish or reckless. Mikey is the show-off with his nunchucks. Donnie has good defense or reach. And Leo uses the way of the sword, right? So that's cool. The fourth aspect that Alan suggested was something tied around Master Splinter, right? Have an aspect that ties you to Master Splinter as your adoptive father or master. Or both. What does Splinter mean to your character? He encourages you, he is strict, he's a loving father, etc. Now, before I get into that, I wanted to bring up another point around aspects. There, sometimes in the book, and if you're playing with people who are really comfortable with Fate, they know Fate really well, there can be this pressure to come up with these really perfectly worded aspects that are, you know, that are those double-edged swords, and you can really start getting all in your head about how to write the perfect aspect. And I would say, especially if you're just starting out, don't worry about that. Make something easy and clear for you, the game master, and the other players at the table to understand, okay? Because the game of Fate is fast, and it's fun, and it should not get bogged down with trying to figure out what an aspect means, right? Brian Holland says, compel. Go into Nunchuck Fury and miss the foot soldiers sneaking up behind you. Exactly, right? Or, like, you know, do something stupid where you're, like, showing off with the nunchucks, right? You see that whole thing, and then all of a sudden, it's like, you know, yeah, the GM compels that to be like, okay, yeah, and then they sneak up behind you, and, you know, boom, they get, yeah, so that's exactly right. That's a perfect way how that could be compelled. And I suspect that'll probably happen. But yeah, so try to keep your aspects clear and easy to understand, especially for you, because you're going to interact with them the most. All right, so for my Master Splinter aspect, this one's a little bit longer, and again, any suggestions you might have will be welcome, but I said Master Splinter is like a father to me. but I feel like I don't measure up in his eyes. So I'm going to have to make that a little smaller because that's hard to read. But I feel like sort of my understanding of Michelangelo is that while he's brash and while he is flashy and he likes to show off and he likes to prank his brothers, he does care about his brothers. He cares about his family. He cares deeply about those that he loves. And he cares about the humans, right? He's the one turtle that kind of wants to go and be among the humans. And so, you know, Leonardo is probably seen as the sort of the leader of the group, right? And Donatello is the super smart one that's all into technology. You know, Raph is hot and fiery, but he's dedicated, right? And Michelangelo is the goofball. And so he wants Master Splinter to feel like, you know, he's not just this adolescent that he can pull his weight. Now, again, I don't know if that's the sort of the canon way, but I think that that's kind of the way I am looking at it. Michael Walsh says he's also he's the most in touch with the real world. Since Donnie is too into technology, Leo is loyal to Splinter's old ways, and Raph is a loner, but Mikey would be the one who informed about pop culture. Exactly. You know, Mikey's the one getting on the phone ordering pizza. Mikey's the one who's going to turn on the news so they can scope out April O'Neil. And, you know, he's probably the one listening to music and yeah, being much more in tune, right? Although I think it was in the old movie in the 1993 version where it's Raph is the one in the trench coat going out to see the movie. So who knows? But yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm glad. Oh, and of course, the way this character sheet is set up, it won't let me print in the last box here. I've had this. I don't know why that's the case. It's really weird, but such is life. However, I'm going to put it down in the stunts field because it's an important aspect. The last one that Alan suggested was personality or bond. Think of aspects that describe your personality or your bond with your brothers. I have a tough shell, but I'm soft-hearted. I read everything. I will do anything for my brothers. So I came up with, so I'm going to put aspect. Come on now. There we go. Whoa. Aspect. I like the idea of I prank my brothers whenever I can. Whenever I can, but I love them deeply. So I feel like when it comes to his relationship with his brothers, you know, Mikey is always the prankster, right? He loves a good practical joke. And I think that's hilarious. I think that could be really fun. Now, if you guys have any like one-liners or jokes or anything that you can think of that I can use possibly in the game, drop them in the chat or put them in, you know, social media or, you know, message them to me, whatever, because I'm terrible at coming up with those, but I feel like they would be super beneficial to have in this game. So yeah, anything you guys got, check that out. So that's aspects in a nutshell, right? I mean, we've got a fairly fleshed out character here just with the aspects alone. You know, the wild one lets you know that he's a bit crazy, right? He's a bit of a wild card. He's gonna go and do things that are unexpected. His trouble being severe ADD, or I may change that to drop everything for April O'Neil. I don't know yet. But either way, right, that gives you a real kind of good look into something that's going to be really troublesome for him. Actually, you know, I might switch this out for everything for April. Oh, actually, I have a great idea. Everything for April or pizza. Yeah. Because I felt like severe ADD is probably too close to the other one. Yeah, God, I love being a turtle. Too obvious, of course. Yeah, I know. But you know, that does fit the character, though. And that's, you know, so that's what I love about Fate is like it's so you can just define your character basically with a sentence. It's really neat. Hot nunchuck fury, right? So we got that as his fighting style, his relationship with Master Splinter, and his relationship with his brothers. So we've got that. And then we have stunts. Now, for anyone unfamiliar with kind of how stunts work in Fate, stunts kind of add in a way, they add a mechanical bonus. So if you were thinking about like a D&D character, a stunt is going to be something like the rogue's sneak attack, right? Or it might be the sneak attack is the one that I always think of. Sometimes you can do like a barbarian's rage. You can use that to kind of gain generally a stunt gives you a +2 to a certain situation. And Fate Accelerated kind of has the stunts worded in a specific way. So I'll show you how that works. And so he said, kind of ultimately he'll allow 3 for the game. Now, what I would recommend is if you're first starting out, define your high concept, define your trouble aspects, maybe one other aspect that you think makes sense, but at least those 2. And then start with maybe 1 stunt. Whatever's the most important thing for you, something that your character is really good at. Maybe this is a sniper scope on your rifle if you're playing, that kind of game. Or, maybe it is you have a sword cane, right? And it's hidden. So, something like that. Maybe you're a wizard in a fantasy setting and you're particularly good at fire magic, right? So, so you have a fireball or something. That would be a good example of you don't need a stunt to define a spell, but you're particularly good at this kind of spell. Michael Walsh, anything that would fit into today's pop culture, from Cash Me Outside girl to making fun of Trump, dabbing to recent dance trends. Yeah, really any pop culture reference would work. That's true. So the problem is, like, I totally have the 90s Ninja Turtle stuck in my head, right? Because I'm like, that's when I grew up with it. That's when I saw the animated stuff and then the sort of live action movies. I haven't seen the new ones, like the 2013, and I think there was one in, God, was it last year? Maybe 2015 or 16. But I've heard they're cool. So yeah, I'll have to do that. But so Alan suggested for stunts, the first one, a +2 stunt. Think of a stunt that tie to your personality, physical traits, or weapons. For example, Donnie may gain a +2 to clever rolls used to overcome technical challenges. Something like that. He gives some other examples. By the way, I've put these examples in the description below, so you can check back on those at any time if you want. So what I came up with for my first stunt is, and I'm going to copy and paste it here from my doc. Or not. Maybe not. Ooh, I bet it's not going to let me. It's going to want me to type it all out, isn't it? Yep. All right. So I think Raph in some of the shows, I don't know if it's in all of it, but he's got that like blade that's part of his nunchucks. So I think it's called like a kusarigama. So I'm gonna do kusarigama, and the way the way stunts are worded in Fate Accelerated is a little weird, but you can find examples of it in the book. The book is only about 50 pages. So stunts are on page 31 if you have the physical book. And essentially it says, because I describe some way that you are exceptional, have a cool bit of gear, or otherwise awesome, I get a +2 when, and then you pick one, which is one of your approaches. Carefully, cleverly, flashily, forcefully, quickly, sneakily, and then one of the 4 actions: attack, defend, create advantage, or overcome. When describe a circumstance. So, you look it up in the book. You don't. The thing is, don't worry too much about getting bogged down with with aspects because, I mean, sorry, with stunts and how they're worded. As long as you know what they do, that's the most important thing. Brian Holland says, just a thought, because I always have my skateboard, I get a +2 when I quickly avoid an attack. Yeah, so that, that's not a bad one. I like that. Yeah, I might use that. So that's a good one to avoid an attack. Okay. Well, I'm going to put this other one down, but I'm going to hold on to that one as well, because I think that makes sense. Because, yeah, he totally does. Yeah, okay. So the one I came up with here was Kusarigama because... Timeout. Because nobody can handle my hot nunchuck fury. So see, I brought my aspect in. I get +2 when I quickly attack. So see, using the quick approach, and then the action. There's 4 actions in Fate, right? Which I mentioned before. When I quickly attack an opponent, when bringing, I don't know if I'm spelling it right, but I don't care, my surprise blade to bear. Okay. So what that means, and stunts need to be, they can't be super open-ended, right? Because a stunt is a very specific situation in which this will apply. But you also don't want it to be so specific that you almost never get to use it, right? So this is an example of, all right, if I'm in combat, and this one may be where I need to change it from quickly to flashy, but the way I was conceptualizing this one is that he's got this blade, right? And so he's doing his thing, and then all of a sudden he whips out this blade, and people don't expect it. So that's what I'm thinking about there. But yeah, so try not to overthink the stunts. Really, word them however you want to word them, as long as you understand what they do. All right. Brian Holland says, edit when I quickly defend when I avoid an attack. Yeah, that makes more sense. And then Michael Walsh says he should have a flashy approach when showing off in combat or distracting enemies. Glad you mentioned that. I don't think I have one, actually. So if you have a suggestion for how that might work, I would be open to it. You don't have to give me the whole, because blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that's a good one. I kind of like that one better than this next one. I had one where I was thinking the stunt would be prankster. And essentially it's because I'm a prankster, I get +2 when cleverly creating an advantage when pranking someone. +3 when pranking Raph in particular. So I don't know if I'm going to use that one. I kind of actually... I wonder if, let's see, I used quickly. I like the idea of using flashy. Let me come back to that one. So, and then the last one, so Alan's suggestion for the second stunt was, let's see here. Oh, yeah, no, and then the second, so he had a suggestion for a once per game session stunt. So there's different examples of how stunts can work. They do talk about them in Fate Accelerated, but I'd highly recommend that you check out either the Fate Core book if you have it. You can get it, I mean, it's pay what you want on DriveThruRPG, so you can get it for free. But they also have the Fate SRD, system reference document, which is phenomenal. And on Evil Hat's website, I mean, they've even got a stunt builder. So... it's great. This game is fantastic. There's tons of resources available. And the Fate community in YouTube is super, super helpful. I know both myself and Michael Walsh have gone to that group time and again for help. Michael actually played in my League of Eldritch Scholars game, which I think I ran for Brigade Con 2015, and that was really fun. So I think I used Fate Core for that one. Gosh, I got to go back and watch that. But lots of help out there. So if you're ever trying to think of this and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, don't worry. Just ask for help. Actually, my recommendation is build all your characters together if you can, because then you guys can spitball it. But anyway, so Alan's suggestion was your once per game session stunt. And typically what that'll do is that'll allow you to do something once per session that's really cool or really useful. Sometimes, depending on how big it is, you may say, I can spend a fate point to do this, but you don't necessarily need to. Stunts are supposed to be free to use in a very specific situation. So the one I had was, because I'm wild and impulsive, once per game, once per session. All right. Hopefully I am back and live again. I'm just going to wait and see if my screen catches up. All right. Yeah, I don't know. Looks like XSplit cut me out here, so I'm not sure what's up there. Hopefully I'm back. Hopefully I don't lose everything here. So we'll see what happens. If everything gets screwed up, then so be it. And I think I forgot to do a local recording as well, so that's cool. Good job, Sam. In fact, I'm going to do that right now because just so I don't lose the second half of this. All right, so I'm locally recording as well. Thank you guys for sticking with me. Sorry about that. Hopefully we're back. So, let's see. All right, so I've got... What was my other stunt? Oh, right, because I am wild and impulsive. Once per session, I can automatically act first in the scene. So that's fairly powerful, right? I mean, if you think about it, that's really like a big deal. I mean, that allows you to, that's essentially like first strike capability in a lot of cases. So that's pretty sweet. And I think that makes sense for this character. Michael Walsh had said because he's a delivery food connoisseur, he knows his way around the sewers to certain areas of New York City based off of restaurant geography. Yeah, absolutely. And then I like the idea of having I really want a flashy one as well. How about, because I am a show-off, I get +2 when flashily defending against attacks using my nunchucks. All right. Maybe something like that, right? Because then I can use the flashy aspect approach, because I think that makes the most sense for him. So we've got our aspects and we've got our stunts. So that's good. The last thing that we need is approaches. And approaches in Fate Accelerated are the thing I think that throw people for a loop the most, because people are used to skills in things like D&D or other games, and even Fate Core has a skill pyramid as opposed to approaches. But approaches are really cool, because what approaches do, they are essentially exactly as named, right? It is how you approach the situation, okay? And the way that happens in the game, as you as a player don't say, I forcefully attack, whatever. You describe, almost as if like you were narrating a scene from a movie, right? You describe what your character does, okay? If you plan on attacking, describe what the attack looks like, how you're doing that. And then the game master will tell you, okay, I think that's forceful or quick or flashy or see whatever, right? And then you roll that. And if you disagree, if you think no, what I'm trying to get across is this, then you can negotiate that. Michael Walsh says change defending to interjection in a situation so you can use it in combat or to distract. Okay, yeah, I think that's fine. I was trying to keep it to the 4 actions, but I mean, I think, like I said, don't worry about it. Injection in a situation. Yeah, Scott Garibay. Thanks for showing up, man. Absolutely, I'm glad you're watching the video here. Definitely +3 for flashy. Absolutely, that's what I was thinking as well. So anyway, your approaches, how you approach your situations, very different than skills. So yeah, and the way it works is you basically get 1 at +3, 2 at +2, 2 at +1, and then 1 at 0. Okay, so this one's going to be, I mean, anybody that knows Michelangelo is going to be able to figure this one out pretty quick, right? Flashy +3, absolutely, right? Now, he's also pretty quick. He, like all the Ninja Turtles are, but, he jumps in, he gets on a skateboard, he goes, he's fast. So I would definitely use one of my +2s as quick. And then the other one that I had was clever at +2. And I would love for your guys' input on this, because this one was kind of going off of some stuff that I read in like a wiki. And I think that he is clever. He just comes across as impulsive, right? And sometimes he doesn't stop to think because he's just going. But so I'm gonna put +2 for careful. If you guys think something different, let me know. Scott, yeah, 0 for careful. Absolutely, he's not careful at all. So +1 for forceful, +1 for sneaky, and then 0 for careful. And I think that makes sense because he's not careful. He's just impulsive. So I'm not going to go into, refresh, current fate points, stress, consequences, whatever. That one doesn't necessarily need to be there, but because that, that's all stuff that'll happen during the game, and the purpose of this is not to focus on the mechanics of the game per se, but more so on how to create a character. So let's take a look at this. And one more comment. Scott, clever +1 in my opinion. Okay. I mean, that makes sense, right? So maybe like sneaky at +2, then like replace that. That could work. Because he's definitely, I think the ninja part, would make sense. So, like you can see, right? It kind of goes either way. It's very malleable. No, I'm not Raphael. I'm Michelangelo. 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 Cowabunga. All right. So let's kind of recap the character that we have here, right? We've got Michelangelo the Ninja Turtle. His description, I'm not going to put anything in the description because everybody knows who Michelangelo is. But I put Cowabunga because I wanted something there. His high concept is the wild one. So he's brash, he's impulsive, he will sometimes act before he thinks. And that's going to be a big deal for somebody like Leonardo, who is careful and who is the leader and wants to plan, right? I like the idea of the trouble aspect being everything for April. If it was anything else, I might put April O'Neil, but again, it's Ninja Turtles. We know what we're doing. So everything for April O'Neil, but I also put or pizza. Because I envision this scene maybe where like they are going out to find Shredder or whatever, and like Mikey's favorite pizza place is open late, and the GM is like, So you guys are all heading down the road on your skateboards, but Mikey, I'm going to offer you a fate point, and you kind of kick on the brakes there and wheel over and start looking in the glass, thinking you might want some pizza, something like that, right? That could be hilarious. And then my fighting style, hot nunchuck fury. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. But if not, then so be it. These are things that you can change during the game. If it doesn't make sense, or if something else, makes more sense. So, and then Master Splinter is like a father to me, but I feel like I don't match up in his eyes, right? So that's more of the relationship building part, right? The part of, okay, what if Shredder comes under attack? How am I gonna feel about that? Michael Walsh says, picky priorities, LOL, women or pizza. Hey, he's basically a 15-year-old. So, I don't know, 15-year-old guy, pizza and women, it makes sense. So this one, that could be a really good opportunity for some deep role play. Because, even though the Ninja Turtles are, somewhat silly, action-based, whatever, cartoony, there's some deep stuff there, and there's some deep interactions, and the potential for some really good moments. And then the last aspect I have, I prank my brothers whenever I can, but I love them deeply. And then I have my stunts, the Kusarigama, because nobody can handle my hot nunchuck fury. I get a +2 when I quickly attack an opponent when bringing my surprise blade to bear, right? So I'm in combat, I'm doing my thing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, cowabunga, here we go, got a surprise. And this blade comes out, and then they're like, whoa, we didn't expect a blade. I get an advantage for that, right? So I could see that being useful. And then, because I'm wild and impulsive, once per session, I can automatically act first in the scene. Obviously that's useful. And then because I'm a show off, I get +2 when flashily interjecting in a situation. Wow, I can't spell, or I'm typing too fast. Situation. Against attacks using my nunchucks, right? So, that one I may rework, I may not. I might run it by the guys when we go through the game and see if they have any tweaks. But I think I got a fairly solid character here. So, thank you guys obviously for coming in, for helping me with this. I think that hopefully people will see this and find this to be useful. I've done a few other videos on my channel as well around Fate and different aspects of it. Most of them from the Game Master's perspective, but simply because I have more experience with that. But Fate is one of those systems that I found really takes a mind shift, especially if you're a long time D&D or D20 player. It can be very difficult to wrap your head around Fate and to play Fate in a way that's fun. So hopefully this will help with that, and maybe some of the other videos I have on my channel will help as well. But any questions that you guys might have, anything Fate related that you want to ask me, by all means, send me a message, whether you put it in the description, or in the comments on this video. Look me up on Facebook. Chalice and Chains is my page on Facebook. I'm also at Twitter at ChaliceIC, and of course I'm active in the Absolute Tabletop community, the Fate community, the One Shot group, a couple others, RPG Brigade. Check all those out. And let me just finish up the comments here, and we will end this thing. Scott says, for pizza. Yes, absolutely. I don't know. If I were running the game, that would be a major stumbling block for Michelangelo for sure. And then Michael Walsh, Fighting style should be improvised weaponry from the antiques in the pawn shop, from the movie, or in crazy action scenes. Yeah, definitely. I just feel like his nunchucks. Oh, right, and then he says the nunchucks are kind of a given. I don't know. I feel like the nunchucks though are so iconic for him that that to me that makes the most sense for the way I'm trying to kind of conceptualize the characters. So anyway, yeah, I hope you found that helpful. I hope that the whole stream still comes through. I think I lost some of it there for a little bit. At least XSplit told me it did. So we'll see if there's an awkward moment there on the stream. But yeah, any questions you guys have, look me up, and I look forward to doing more of these in the future.